Alrighty, so let's continue now actually making the blocks. They are called O's blocks. That's the sheet that you should have out now. Pull this one out if you're all done with your fabric. And then you're going to have, now I know that when we cut it up, it gets, I want to say, different fabric cut out the same squares. For example, at one point we were cutting out 12, 4, and 4 by 3 3/4. So then you'll have a stack of that for this fabric, which is fabric H. And then at another time we were cutting out a fabric H also, 4, same size, 4 by 3 3/4. So you're going to have a total of 16 of these squares. If you grouped them to 16, that's fine. If you didn't and you kept it separate just so that you could keep it in your mind because you're new and you didn't want to mess anything up, that's fine too. You'll have 2 little stacks here. Well, thicker stack and a smaller stack. And then you're going to have 4 in fabric A, which is the light color with the writing on it. And in your case, if you bought the kit, it's going to be a light off-white sort of with a green is the way that I saw the lettering. I don't know if that's what you all see, but it'll be a 4 inch. So that's what that is. And then you're going to have 4 6 1/4 inches with your fabric H, because this is only 2 colors we're using here. And then you're going to have 4 6 1/4 with the fabric A, the writing. Only using 2 colors in this square just to keep it straight. So if you've mismarked it or you need to go back and look at your little squares, go ahead and do all that so that you've got this to get together. Now let me tell you about the lady at the hairdresser. So, and I didn't even get her name. That's the thing. Anyway, I was sitting down there waiting for my sidekick, which is my granddaughter Megan, to get her hair done. And all I did was said hi. That's enough to start a conversation. If somebody wants to talk to you, you don't have to keep talking. And she said hi, and then she made a comment. Excuse me 1 minute, my laundry's finished. Now for the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the 2 largest set of squares. So you're going to have 4 of H and 4 of A. And in this case, if you're not using our colors, they're still called A and H. It's whatever color that you're using. I want to think this is the background color. I'm not sure, but we'll just go from there. And we're going to put them right sides together. Now, if you feel like yours got a little bit wrinkled and you need to go ahead and re-iron them, there's no problem with that. Y'all can do that at any time throughout this entire process. And you're going to put them right sides together like this. Now, there's no marking. This is what you're going to do. You're going to take it to the sewing machine and you're going to stitch 1/4 inch all the way around the entire block. Now I'm going to pin it in a couple places just so that my block doesn't move. And this is going to make 4 half square triangles. Now we're going to do 1 complete block before we move on. So go ahead and line up your blocks. And I'm using a 2.5 inch stitch length. And what I'm going to do, just to make it really simple so that you don't have to stress, is I went ahead and I came all the way down to the tail end. This block does not make a difference. All I want to do is make sure that I have gone over each corner. If you want to stop and measure 1/4 inch and all that, you can do that. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do it really fast like this. It's not going to hurt a thing. And let's say you don't want to do that and that you wanted to mark it. If that's the case, I'm going to show you how to mark that for yourself if you want to. This is what I would normally do. If I wanted to mark it, I would get my ruler out. This yellow line right here above the 3/16. See the 3/16? The yellow one is 1/4 inch. This is 1/4 inch. So this long one and this one, which you can't even tell is long, but this one's long also. We're going to put it on. And I'm going to match it up here, 1/4 inch. Now, in this case, because of my pin, I take my 1/4 inch, and instead of being on the fabric like I do when I cut it, I come off the fabric to allow for the pen size. And I come off the fabric here too. Let me take this out and show you. Or let me actually just show you on another one. Hold on a second here. All right, let's pretend that you wanted to mark this. We're going to go up here to this corner. Okay. So normally when I cut something, let me get it up here so you can see it, I would do this. And that would be on the fabric. Okay? Just like this. But when I go to mark, if I do that, I'm going to be way over 1/4 of an inch. So I have to take this line off. So you take it off the fabric, then you mark. But in this case, you're going to have to take your ruler and turn it because you're looking for that 1/4 inch. Remember, right above this 3/16 is my 1/4 inch. So I take it and take it all the way off, and I go down here because you're going to go up 2 and over 2. The first one is 1/16, and the second one is 1/4. You take them both off of the fabric. See how they're off the fabric there? When they're off the fabric, that's when you want to put your dot right there. Because this right here is taking up space, believe it or not. And if I was to put this on the 1/4 on the fabric, then my dot's going to be further over to the left. And I want it at the 1/4 inch. And if you're doing the scant, because you guys don't want to do a 1/4 inch, and maybe that's the way your machine is set up, you're going to be over here for a scant inch. Okay? You're going to be closer to that edge and closer to this edge. And I'm doing a 1/4 inch, so that's why I'd have to mark it. And I'd have to mark it on all 4 of my corners to get it correct. If I want to sew up my 1/4 inch and stop, pivot, turn it, and come down. This is why I'm just going off. Let me show you here. Let me lift it up a little bit. I'm just going off right here. It doesn't make any difference. They're crossing each other. It's like it's locked itself. It's just easier and faster. Specifically, if you're going to be doing chain stitching. Now, at this moment, I'm only doing one total block. Back to my sewing here. I hope I'm not boring all y'all that have already sewed for a long, long time and know all of this stuff. You can skip the stuff that you already know if you want to bypass it on the video. Also, let me go ahead and explain now. When you get down to this corner, after you've gone all the way around, you're going to have a little bit of wave like this because your fabric just automatically will come together. Take your fabric, pull a little bit, just a little taut, which is you're pulling out the ruffles, and then slowly let it go, and it'll take care of that for you. Now here is where it is very important to have a ruler that will go off both ends. See how this is too short? Okay, when you want to cut your fabric, what you're looking at is this right here, which is the pieces that crossed or where you turned your intersection there. But you want the ruler to come off of that. And you want it to come off on both sides because looking at this, you can see, I'm going to put this ruler up there to show you, that even though it looks like it's correct, okay, I'm going to eyeball it and see if I can get it correct. All right, so now I can eyeball this. I can see it right here on this spot where my scissors would go. And then my scissors has to go like this. But let me see if I'm... And let me show you how I'm off if I was to cut that. Although it looks like it's correct. Let me show you here. See how I'd be over to the left and I would not have gotten it straight. It looked like it was straight. It looked like it was fine. But I can tell that it's not. So now what I do is take this ruler away and get a different ruler that I know will go from end to end. This one will go from end to end. So it goes from there to here. Take your rotary cutter off of the corner here. Don't put it on the corner yet. Come off your fabric. Know where your line's going to go. And then line up the other end, and that's what you're looking at. You're slowly going up here and you're slicing it in half. Now, if you can avoid picking it up, don't bother picking it up. Try to go the other direction. If you have a rotating board, which I'm going to get out here because it works really good with my lock block. Okay, there's my block. Now, this is the rotating mat. Let me move some of this stuff here. So now you would rotate your mat. Put your ruler down here. And then you're going to cut right across this direction. And now you have 4 pieces like that. And you're going to open these. And there's your half square triangle. And we're going to have 4 of them. And it takes 4 because it's on every corner of this block. Now, what I will do is I will go ahead and I will iron this so that it can be flat. Let me see if it tells you the size. So when finished, these should be 3.75, which is 3 3/4. Now, the first thing you do when you iron is you press down. You do not go back and forth because this bias right here, you do not want to stretch out. And what I'm doing is I'm relaxing the seams, but I'm also flattening out the fabric here. Then you want to, in this case, I'm going to iron towards the dark side, which is the red side. And I'm going to go straight across it, okay? But I'm not pushing heavy on my iron. I'm very lightweight, gliding over the top of it. Just go back and forth. It doesn't need to be pushed, pressed down. It's just the weight of the iron itself. And yes, your red will change a color. It always does. And that's it. It is done. That is 1 square. I'm going to go ahead and finish ironing these, and then I'm going to show you how to use the lock block tool. If you have never seen it, don't know anything about it, I'll explain it real quick for you, and then we'll go from there. But I'm going to also show you how to do it with a regular ruler if you have not invested in a lock block. And the reason I said invest is they are not cheap rulers. They are very good. Now, this is the ruler that we're going to use this time. It's the block lock. I think I've been calling it a lock block, but it's the block lock. And they do come in different sizes. They have a smaller one out there. I don't own a smaller one, but here is how you use it. So this part that you see that is shadowed, it is actually an indentation in the ruler. And I don't know if you can, there you go, you can tell how it has a curve. Maybe, maybe not. So this goes in there. Let me get my other ruler over here. See, you can tell that that went into, right inside there. It goes in there and sits. That's your 1/4 inch. That's the size of this right here, a 1/4 inch. So the object of this lock block is to position your fabric, in our case, at the 3 3/4 inch, because that's what we're trying to get, is 3 3/4 inch. And we want it 3 3/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch. So it is going to be trimmed on the right side as well as the bottom down here. And then before you cut it, just to make sure you have it correct, take the square that is 4 by 3 3/4, put the 3 3/4 up here on the ruler, and make sure that it goes to that edge right there. So that tells you, yes, this is the correct size. Even though this is 4 inches this direction, it's 3 3/4 that direction. So this is sort of like a check and balance type thing, where you're making sure it's correct. So then what you do with this mat here, hold your ruler in place, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and come off the fabric. And then turn it. Start at the bottom and come off the fabric. Now, you pick this up, and there's your block. If you want to take your little ear off, by all means, you can do that. So here's our second block that we're going to do now. I started with the one up here and the one up here. I've laid it down here where it belongs, and I have moved this top. I've been looking at the top part, so I have moved it down till it hits the 3 3/4. You look over here. Here's the 3. And you are bringing it, let's see here. Move this. And the 3 3/4 over here. So I can move it up a little bit. It's still 3 3/4 here. That's what you're keeping as you move this up and down to make sure that you're going to be taking off enough, or sorry about my stomach there. And then you go ahead and you cut it. Now you can turn this around as many times as you want until you have it correct. Oh, that's 2 of them. So we'll set these 2 aside, and now we're going to do it without the lock block ruler. Now for this demonstration, this is a square ruler. This is my 5.5 inch. Now it is not the block lock, so it doesn't have any place for a groove. So now what you're looking at is you're looking at this diagonal line right here. So you want that line to go down the line on your fabric, exactly where you split it. Okay, just like that. And it goes from end to end. So now we're going to pull it down. And you can match it up on one side or 2 sides. It doesn't make a difference. What I like to do is first I'll look to see if it will make the 3 3/4 inch, because that's what I'm looking for. Will it make it perfect? Let's go over here. 3 3/4 right there. And I like to keep it on the line. And I can see that it got off and it got shorter here. So then what I'm going to do, instead of just trimming this like that, I'm going to go up and I'm going to trim off a small amount on 2 sides. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to line it up. Now all I'm doing now is I'm lining up this line so that I have a little bit of fabric on this side and this side. And I'm not lifting up my hand because I want the ruler to stay in the exact same spot. So then I have to take my ruler, I flip it upside down, I turn my board here, and now I want to trim this side and this side. So now what I'm looking for is my goodness gracious. All right, on my ruler, my 3 3/4 inch location, and I hope you can see this. Let me see how much you can. All right, you can see it. So this ruler here has these little things right here, which I call L's, the letter L when I'm looking at it. And this little spot right here is my 3 3/4 inch. So I look here and I see 3 3/4 inch, 3 3/4 inch there, but to make sure it's down here, it's the little L. And I think I need to, there we go, move it a little bit like that, and then trim it. And if it ends up being when I say a skosh, y'all kind of know what that is. A skosh too big or a skosh too small is fine. You just don't want it beyond 1/8 of an inch. And then all I do is trim it here, turn it, and trim it here. And then my dog ears and everything are off of there because I didn't trim the one side like the block lock. So that's one block. So I'm going to start out and find that center point. And actually, that's pretty darn perfect right there. So I really only need to trim it one time, because there's my 3 3/4. Oh no, it's not. It's got to go down further. 3 3/4 right here. 3 3/4 right there, and on the little mark there. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim this twice, because it lucked out. And then I'll just trim off the little dog ear. And then we'll get the little tester, which is what this is. That's what I call that. And that's my 3 3/4 inch. Right there. All right. So now we have all 4 of our blocks done. I'm going to set it up the way it should be looking. And we'll get it sewn the way that I lay it out. I will set my corners first. All of the red point in towards the middle. The one white, I go ahead and I put it in the middle. Then what it's asking for is the 4 inch by 3 3/4. Now when you look at it, the 4 is this way, the 3 3/4 is this way. It is showing that you're going to put the 3 3/4 and the 3 3/4 together. It is showing 4 and 4 here. And now, maybe I better read that. Alrighty, so the way that you lay it down is this side here is 3 3/4, just like this side, because we want to be able to sew these 2 pieces together. So this is the 3 3/4. Put it up to it and it matches. And that's the 4 inch, which matches this piece. And that's how your things need to match up. If yours doesn't match up like that, now this is the 4 inch side here. If you've got a really good eye, you can tell that this is just a little bit shorter than that. The block here is 4 inches, so we've got to take the 4 inch side to put to the 4 inch side, and the 4 inch side to the 4 inch side. That's why these are 3 3/4 to that block. But that right there is a 4, because we're going to sew it in a row. Once we sew it in a row, then we can sew each row and it'll all come together, because remember, we're going to do some nestling now. Let's go ahead and sew this row first. Now I'm going to pin this right one to the middle one. And this is going to be the end that has a lot of bulk on it because of the seam. So you can either do one of 2 things. Go ahead and come down this side, or flip it over and do it this direction so that that comes off your machine instead of on, because we're not lining anything up. So let's do that. All I'm doing is reversing my pin. Because it's going to be a lot easier to sew it that way than the other direction. At this point, we don't need to iron it. Just make sure you got your direction correct. Remember, this is going into the white square that goes here. Now we'll pin this side and repeat the process. If you're not a pinner, that's fine. You don't have to pin it. I, on the other hand, want to pin it, just to hold on to it to get it started. If you need to use a leader ender, you can. I'll show you on the next one what that is for all those that don't know. And then that's correct, because these are going towards the center. I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to iron them all at the same time, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to repeat this with the middle So we're going to sew the right side first. I'm going to go ahead and use a leader ender so that y'all can see it. Now don't worry that these blocks, and I'm going to show you here when I get this pinned. Normally when you're sewing blocks together, the blocks are all the same size. But you can tell that this isn't, because this is only 3 3/4. Remember? This was the part that's 4 inches. So that goes from end to end. This one doesn't. Now, let me show you what a leader ender is. 2 fabrics. I put them right side together. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch, or whatever size I want. Sometimes I do is 1/4 or a scant. I start it on my machine, and I go ahead and I sew it. And right before I get to the end of it, I take the piece that I'm going to do for my project, I put it up underneath there, and I go ahead and hug that fabric. And when it comes off of this fabric, it goes right onto this fabric, and that's called a leader. Now there's going to be times that you need an ender. So here's another piece. Let's change the colors here. We'll go with this and this. And I have a whole bunch of these 2.5 inch squares all cut up. And this keeps your fabric from running up underneath your machine. That I'm going to show you here. So let's go down to the tail end on my fabric. Put this up against there. And go right off onto that. And then cut it. Let me get you a little closer to my foot over here. Let me clip this first. And then I just stack up all my leader enders over here. Took my foot off. You see this right here? How that is a small little rectangle. That is so that I can use a zigzag stitch, and it will go back and forth within this. If I wanted to use my foot, and here's my other foot, it has a single hole, so the needle will only go straight down in there. The problem with this kind of plate on your machine is that a lot of times when you start sewing your fabric here, it wants to go down inside that hole. To avoid that, that is where the leader enders come in. All right, so that's just a tip for the newbies. Let me put my foot back up here. Or actually, let me just see if I can get my foot to go back on there automatically. Let's see if I'm off. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to take this one and we're going to attach it to that one. Now, if you're thinking that as many times as you've sewn and that's never happened to you, you're very lucky. Or you start your fabric. Because if you start your fabric will be stiff on the corner and it won't have a tendency to curl under or go under. That's our second row now, and I'm going to have my letters going up if I can. I know that on my other 2 blocks I don't, but the good thing is that they're actually opposite of each other. So that's not a problem. And let's do the last one, just like we did the first one. And now on this end, when I start sewing it, the bulk is actually going to already be at the bottom, which is fine. And the reason I put a pin, and I'm going to show you here, in here is to hold this down as the machine comes down. I don't want that to be flipped over. Did you want to make an appearance and show everybody your haircut? Huh? No.
How did it smell though?
Smell wonderful.
Okay, good, because I took 2 showers.
Oh.
And I washed my hair 3 times.
Okay. You sure you don't want to show? I've already talked about your hair.
I'm sure.
Huh?
I'm sure.
All
You'll
right.
see them in...
Another video?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh.
Okie dokie. What?
And I don't know why you're telling everybody about my hair.
I think it's beautiful, that's why. People like to know that kind of stuff.
I think it looks better when it's wet.
Well, it's wet right now, so it looks pretty good to me. So now, since we're going to have this bit of bulk at the corner, because I'm flipping it over, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a leader ender on there. All right, let's see, what do I have? This fabric for the leader ender, the green Christmas fabric, is kind of thick. All right, let's go ahead and get that started. And now we are going to take it up to the ironing board, and I'm going to show you how you can make sure that your little pieces that are going to be nestling are going to fall in place for you without any effort on your part. First, I'm going to read the directions to see if it actually tells you to put it one way or another. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Alrighty, we're up here at the ironing board. So the very first thing you want to remember is we're going to relax our seam. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and do this right here. It'll get all of these sides. So that's my right side. Then I'm going to get the left side. Just like that. And now here's the purpose of me showing this to you. You're going to flip this over and you're going to be deciding for yourself, do you want, and this is the way I'm going to do it, do you want these seams to go that direction or that direction? My preference is to go this way and this way. The purpose of that is because there's bulk right here. If I go this way, I have these two pieces of fabric, these two pieces of fabric, plus that fabric, which is 5. If I go inward, it's only 3 on one and 2 on the other. This can go either way. So if that's the purpose, then you can go out with that and you can go in with that, and then they nestle. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go like this. Then I'm going to turn it and I'm going to go this way. And you wouldn't normally do this, but I'm doing it. I'm going to turn it over here because I want to make sure that I've got it pressed really nice. Turn it this way. I hold it up so that it goes over. So now I know that's correct and they're both going in. So I want these to be going the other direction. So flip them over, and if these are going in, these have got to go out like that in order to nestle. So out and out. I will flip it over. I hope I did that right. I might have done it. Let's see here. Okay. So when you put them together, they nestle like that, which is what we want. So you look at this. If you've forgotten, you went outward, so you're going to go inward on these. This will make it, if you're going to do your free motion stitching, when you get done, if you're going to do this yourself, it'll make it easier for you when you have to go over those bumps. Or even if you're going to be stitching in the ditch. And then this goes like that. Let's make sure it's correct before we move on. And yes, it is correct. Now we're going to take it and we're going to pin them together. So I'm going to pin the first row to the second row. I'll show you right as I got it up here at the ironing board. The first thing I do when I pin is I go to the intersection and I pin it first. And actually I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that, let me get my pointer so you all can see it too. I'm going to show you because I'm going to correct it before I go on. So now that I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the stitches that have come all the way down, and this stitch here, if you notice, has come off. See how it came loose? Even if I pulled it, I don't feel it's secure. It is at least a 1/16 of an inch, if not more, because my 1/4 inch is right here, so it's almost gonna barely meet. So I'm gonna go ahead and restitch this little area right there, right now, before I move back up here. And now I'm going to go ahead and snuggle this right here and put a pin on the left-hand side, because when I sew, I come from this side here all the way down, go to the other end here, do the same thing. The bottom one is what I'm concerned about, because I don't want that to flip up on me. Go to the corner, I'll put a pin in here, and I'll go to this corner and I'll put a pin in there. And this is the first one that I'm going to sew. Then I'll come back and I'll pin the other one. Your ender up here for the thickness. You want to try not to go over your pins if you're using pins. Don't want to damage your machine. I'm going to pin the next two exactly the way that I pinned this one. Do that with yours if you're following along. I am using another leader ender. And there we have it, and it is all correct. And this is what I was talking to you about earlier. This one is right side to read it. Let's turn it this way. So that one's correct in the corner here. Let me back it up a little bit here. So this one's correct, this one's correct, this one's correct. That one is backwards, and that one is backwards, but that's fine because we're mixing and matching. But this is the way the block ought to look. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to iron it. When you're ironing this, you're also relaxing the seams. That's the first thing I do. These are the ones that we just sewed. And then you want to decide whether your blocks go up or down, and I'm going to take mine and go up. So the first thing you do, if you want the fabric to go towards this top here, so that when it's done it looks like this, then make sure it's on the top. And then I gently push as I press, and I'm only going a little bit. I'm not giving it a lot of pressure because I don't know if it actually flipped like I wanted. It did. And then I want the same thing to happen here. I want this to be going this direction. So I repressed it and I hold this fabric up to get it to go that way. I take a look at it, and yes, you can see that all the seams went this direction. And I know that the bulk went that way, but that's okay. And look how pretty the back is. And now if you're one of those people that starch and you wait till you're totally finished, this would be the time to do it. You'd want to starch it now. If you're not a starcher, you can use water on it. There we go. It all looks nice and finished. And now we're just going to complete making the other 3. So we'll end up with 4 of these. And then we're going to do, we'll save them and set them aside. And then we're going to have week 2 next Monday. And the video is going to go up 8 o'clock Texas time. Now, the reason I say that is the pattern and the directions and everything are going to be on the website, but they're not going to be on there until 8 o'clock Texas time. That is 9 o'clock my time. So my video will not come out at midnight like it normally does. It's going to come out on Monday at 9 a.m. Because when I upload the video and you see the video, that's going to remind you to go over and get the pattern. But if I did it before 9 o'clock, the pattern would not be available. I personally have already had that experience where I thought that the person who was providing a pattern was going to have it up online exactly midnight, all right? And I went online all morning and it never showed up. It didn't even show up until after lunch. So the point is, when you get my notice that my video went up, that means the pattern is up. And what I'm saying is, if you live in California, it won't be up at 9 o'clock my time. I believe that you are 3 hours behind me, if I'm not mistaken. If you're, or I don't know, to be truthful with you. I don't know if you're ahead of me or behind me. Hold on, let me check. Okay, so California is 3 hours behind me. So when I'm 9 o'clock, they're going to be 12 o'clock. So theirs won't even be up till 12. Mine will be up at 9. So just depending on where you live, that's when it comes up or comes out on the website. Because wherever you're living, you have to go by the Texas time. Just letting you know so that you don't call Fort Worth Fabric Studios and ask them why it's not up. All right? I'm just giving you all the heads up about it. It will be up. It's just it just has to do with the time zones. Now, let me go ahead and I'm going to finish the other 3. Then I'm going to put them up here on the design wall so you all can see them. Here they are on the design board. All 4 blocks. These are called the O's. I like to call them the hugs. They turned out really good. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you'd like to. Click the little bell and then you'll get my notices. And I'm going to see you next Monday for week 2. Until then, bye-bye. Take care, everybody.